Oh my goodness, I thought I was talking to myself. Okay. Okay, doors open at 8:30. We come and network, coffee and conversations. Presentation starts at 9.
Yeah.
We don't have Cup of Joe though next week, right? Is it next week? Labor Day? Yes. So we will not have Cup of Joe next week due to Labor Day weekend. So no Cup of Joe next Wednesday, but we're typically here every Wednesday morning. 2 presenters. We do? I don't know. Is Labor Day not next week? Oh, okay. I take that back.
So you were late.
And I did not pay attention. Apparently. Okay, I did not look at my calendar. So next week we have Cup of Joe, but it's the week after. September 9th is when we don't have Cup of Joe because of Labor Day. Okay, that's what it is. Anything else? What did I miss? Okay. And that's it. Get out. Okay, so next presenter, our second presenter, Wes Simmons with 3D Institute. Welcome.
How's that? Does that work?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me, Annette. Again, this is probably my third time at Cup of Joe, I believe. And I've titled today's presentation with the tip of the hat to the late, great Tom Petty, Running Down a Dream. Love that song. If you run out on a treadmill, which I don't anymore, but now I'm making myself accountable. Finish your workout with Running Down a Dream by Tom Petty, and you will finish with a great workout. It's just like the cadence. It just gets you'll be humming. But it's also a tip of the hat to this project that we kicked off 5 years ago called the Joseph Company. The Joseph Company started here in St. Joseph. This is chapter 1, but it's really inspired by a different Joseph, the original Joseph, the Joseph who was the original dreamer. And we used this framework inspired by his life called the life cycle of the dream. You're here as an entrepreneur because you have a dream. You're running down a dream. Well, there's a life cycle that goes through a pattern that we call survival, stability, success, significance. And it kind of mirrors that of a tree, right? It starts as an acorn, survival. And it can maybe spring into a seedling. We'll call that stability. Strong young oak, success. Grand oak, significance, where it's shooting out large branches and making generational impact. And that's the dream of the Joseph Company, is to run down a dream of significance. In my introduction, I was introduced as the president and CEO of the 3D Institute. That's true. That is our company. We're based in Orlando, Florida, just because 2 of my partners, one of them now, we bought the other one out, live in Orlando, and that's where we planted it in 2014. Friendly state to start a business. But the epicenter is right here in St. Joseph, where I reside. And 5 years ago, we began a community-based work that we've now named the Joseph Company. Who's involved? Hundreds of leaders across St. Joseph. Now you may be thinking, wow, you got a big payroll. No, because we're not a company in that sense. Think of in terms of a company of people, a company of dreamers. We're gathering a company of companies who want to take this journey together. And so we are hundreds of leaders strong, representing the arts, athletics, business, education, government, nonprofit, and healthcare. And we're asking leadership teams to engage with us on what we call the 3D journey. Journey. There. Yeah. Oh, okay. Just leave it. I got it. What do? We train leaders in a leadership framework called 3D. This is not a 3D presentation today, but if you're unfamiliar with what we do, it's a framework for coaching on a foundation of purpose. That's our mantra. We come from the world of sport in the 3D Institute. We look at what do the best coaches do in the world of sport to create a high-functioning team, to create a life-giving culture, and say, okay, how do we take those principles and apply them into leadership in any sector? Because if you're running down a dream and you have a team, well, I don't know if you realize this, but there's a coaching aspect to that role. If you're in a leadership role who's responsible for helping a group get from where they are to where they want or need to go, there's a coaching aspect to that role. We help sharpen the coaching aspect of leadership, and we do it through this framework called 3D. The 3 dimensions are skill set, mindset, heart set. You got to be competent in the skills, but you've also got to have the right mindset, and it's got to be driven by a character-driven process. That's the heart. How do we offer this? Lots of formats through 3D Institute, but with the Joseph Company, we began something last year that we call 3D Masterclass. This is our offering to the community. It is a cross-sector leadership and development opportunity, but the cross-sector is the other unique part of it, because we're trying to develop leaders intentionally in an environment where we're creating collaboration across those different sectors that we might pool resources, connect, unite in purpose, and improve the community. What we do there is we train people fully. It's a 9-week program, about 18 hours. They're each about 2-hour trainings. And we call it 3D Masterclass because we just teach the content as if we're teaching it like we do teach it at 16 different universities at master's level courses. We have 16 different universities that use this as a training for sport, business, and education now. Last time I was here, it was just sport. But we do actually have future educators being trained in that. And Masterclass is taught live. That's the way we're doing it. There's no credit necessarily applied at this point, but we teach it in that same format, and that's where the name comes from. How we started. We've already kind of been talking about COVID a little bit here. It's funny because I was talking about COVID as I was writing this thing with my wife as I was rewinding the tape. Let me back it up a little bit before COVID. It was the summer of 2019. A little bit about me. I moved here in 2004. Brought my dream, my entrepreneurial dream, to St. Joseph. You know, we were the city built to launch dreams. That was our original story. People came here on their stagecoaches to get resourced, equipped, and launched. And that's what I did. I brought my entrepreneurial dream here. And really for about the next 15 years, as I grew my company, really this was home base and I was traveling from here. I wasn't really doing anything here. I was just living here, living in my little bubble. My kids, I've got 4 kids, we're all little. They weren't in high school yet. We had our church, we had our little Walmart, we had our, just kind of our little bubble. And then I'd head to the airport. Well, in 2019, I'm looking ahead going, okay, next year, 3 of the 4 kids are going to be transitioning to a new school. Also around that time, I was thinking, okay, maybe my run in St. Joseph is through. Because at that time, everything kind of seemed like it was on this downward trajectory. I was kind of, lots of I know there's a lot of car thefts that summer. My father-in-law's truck got stolen. But there's just all kinds of stuff, and there's all the negativity, and it's just all the controversy, and everything's a political fight, it seems like. And I'm just like, I don't have to live here. Platte City, they were like the first school to ever bring 3D, and I'll just go down there. They're doing great. They're 10 years into this. I want my kids to experience that. Why not just integrate my life? That was my thinking. Now, my wife is born and raised here. Amy Coy is her maiden name. So Benton alumni, 1997. She's like, Wes, you know you have something that could help, and you haven't even tried. What's that saying? Yeah, I'm not going to say it. And I knew she was right, but I didn't want to hear it. You know you married right whenever your spouse or significant other will tell you exactly what you need to hear right when you didn't want to hear it. And so I just kind of slow played that. And then this thing called COVID was kind of creeping in on us. And I'll never forget the day the world shut down. I was in Austin, Texas, doing a 3D workshop. I was on a plane. I was hoping to get back to the airport because they're talking about, you may get stuck where you're at. the airports may shut down. I'm going, I like Austin, but I want to get home. So I got on the plane, made it. I powered my phone off. Because back then, I think you still had to power your phone off. I don't know what changed, but now you don't take the plane down if you do that. But back then you did, right? So I powered down and went threatening all the people on the plane. I landed in Kansas City. I turned my phone back on. It was like ding, 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 all kinds of notifications. The NBA had shut down in that 2-hour flight, canceled their season. And it just seemed like everything followed suit after that. In fact, I have the distinct memory of my wife and I pulling out our phones and pulling out the calendar and going, delete. And we were forced into this timeout, this kind of collective timeout. And, you know, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of pain with that for a lot of people. For me, it was kind of a refresher, you know, it was a good pause. And it put me into kind of a reflective mindset. That's what you do at a timeout, right? You reflect, you strategize. Well, by June, that timeout became halftime, right? That's what it was for me, because I was 42 at the time. Now, I don't know if that's literal. I mean, I'll take 84. I'll take it. But the general season of life of halftime. And I found myself saying, okay, what are we going to do at this time? Because we can't really travel, we can't really train, we can't do a lot of things that we just deleted. What can we do? I was like, Brett, we can only sit around the pool so much. All right, let's build something, or let's go back to our content. Let's start digging into it, and let's start like refreshing it. And I was in this halftime mindset, going through 3D content, and I came across module 2 in our training. I knew it was in there, but I kind of forgot about it. But it was a survey that we referenced of 95-year-olds. And the idea is this: there was 50 95-year-olds, and they asked them a simple question. If you could rewind the clock, if you could go all the way back to the beginning and do it all over again, what would you do different? 3 things dominated their responses. The first is that they would have reflected more, which was speaking to me in that moment, because I was experiencing the value of that. And I thought about that. I'm like, I think that's why at 95, people end up with regrets, because they never took a time out to pause and reflect of where am I? So they just kind of drift through life. And now here they are at 95 with a dream in their heart that's about to be buried with them. The second thing they wish they would have done was risked more, taken more calculated risks. Again, to see that dream that's in their heart come to fruition. You got to run down a dream. The third thing was this, though. I call it invested more. Now, you could look at those final 2 and think I'm talking financial. They're not talking financial on either one of those. That didn't matter at 95. At 95, it was more about, did I go for it? And did I invest more, not in myself, but in the next generation? Did I do more things that now live on after me? And I was thinking about this, and it's halftime. And as soon as I kind of located myself at halftime, it's funny how, I'm the product of having some great coaches in my life. I got handed off from a high school coach who was a legend. He's in like 7 Hall of Fames, to a college coach, probably in more than that. And these are legendary guys. And it's amazing how the things they would teach you just stick for a lifetime, just stick. Some of those sticky statements started surfacing. And I could start hearing Coach T's voice going, you know, the most important drive of any football game is the first drive of the second half. That's what he'd say at halftime, which I don't even know if that's true, but it's a great mindset, right? It's like, yeah, right? And so I'm sitting there at halftime going, okay, what's the second drive? What's the first drive of the second half for me? What am I going to risk? To me, it seemed risky to stay in St. Joe. It kind of seems like, you know, Tim was talking about this there. We were driving around town. He saw this license plate that says St. Joke. We have such a terrible self-image. I mean, I'm like, is this really what, you know, that was my mindset, but it seemed risky to stay here. But what I realized through another coach's sticky comment, that this is where I need to make the big time where I'm at. That's what Coach Boswick used to always say. He'd always say, the big time's where you're at, which is his version of a coach named Frosty Westring's statement. The big time is where you are. And the idea is that the big time isn't about a state of, it's not about it's not about your title. It's not about how many zeros are after your paycheck. It's not about a status or a level, it's a mindset. And you can make the big time right where you're at. And I remember going in after that going, okay, and there's other things that happened, but I went and told Amy, I was like, all right, all in. Let's go all in St. Joseph. Here's where we're going to take a risk. Let's be a part of the solution. So we launched. The Joseph Company was my first drive in the second half. We're 5 years in. We haven't punted yet. That's good. Target market. We're targeting leaders. So if you follow under the shade of any of these trees, arts, we want you on the team. Athletics, we want you on the team. I'm not going to say all of them. Business, education, healthcare, government, nonprofit. We want you on the team. And if you feel like you don't fit neatly in any of those categories, I'm going to make the case that you're either business or nonprofit. Jump us on the team. Jump on the team. We're going somewhere. We work with leaders to build high-functioning teams and life-giving culture. That's what we do. Some economics and figures. For the last 5 years, I counted them up. I'm counting gatherings like this. Over the last 5 years, we've done over 120 experiences, trainings, meetings, and we've been in front of about 7,000 residents in our community. We've done 40 leadership breakfasts. We finished that. Many of you, I know, have been a part of that journey. We kind of put a bow on that last June with Breakfast 40. If you want to go to our website, the Joseph Company, you can check all that out. The whole recap's there. But some figures with 3D Masterclass. Again, this is a 9-week leadership journey that we do. We're trying to make this practical. We want to give people something to believe in. Come on, join us, and we're going to help you sharpen your leadership skills in the realm of coaching that you might, again, create that high-functioning team and create a culture that people want to be a part of it. This is our St. Joseph pilot pricing year. We do not charge this in other communities. In other communities, the base price is $8.99 for the for-profit for the 9-week class, and then different markets go up from there. We've got a for-benefit price here. And with the nonprofit, we just try to get skin in the game from everybody so that they value it. And then we have partners like the 3D Institute, my company, and then Joseph Company partners like Reed Automotive that help subsidize to keep the cost low for residents in St. Joseph. But that's the tangible offering we have. Leadership development class called 3D Masterclass. Is there volume? There's not volume. We're not going to do a video. Matt Porter delivery. I should just come over here. All right, so our process, what do we do? Like when we come into an organization, how do you change a culture? How do you change a culture of an organization? Well, what we've done is learned what great coaches do in the sport world and say, okay, how do we apply that to an organization? We've recognized a pattern of implementation. We call these the 4 steps, the 4 phases of the journey. We call this the 3D journey. It's got to start by capturing the imagination of the stakeholders. Those of you who are company presidents, CEOs, leaders of your teams, it starts with you. If this doesn't capture your imagination, then good luck really, trying to architect a culture underneath you, right? It's got to be, the power of decision-making needs to be bought in first. That's essential. But with a training like 3D, power is not enough usually to roll this out successfully. You can't just be like, crack a whip, we're going to start being transformational around here. You better start, it just doesn't work like that. And the last thing we want people to do is feel like 3D is it's like punitive process where we're trying to fix people. No, it's not about that at all. We're trying to optimize people. We're trying to help people be the best they can be. And why do we have to learn every lesson the hard way? Why can't we gain the wisdom of people that have learned how to build these high-functioning teams and apply it? So it's got to capture the imagination first, but then we got to get buy-in, exploration. This is where we say, okay, Mr. Powerful Decision Maker, invite some mid-level management into the decision-making process. Who are your culture drivers? Like I'm talking to an athletic director, I'm like, you need your football coach on board. You need your women's basketball coach on board. You need that, who are those influential coaches that if they buy in, everybody buys in? It's an important step. It's one we skipped early on, quite honestly here, but we've learned. All right, you've got the power of decision-making and the influence of culture drivers in agreement. Now what? You implement it. You roll it out. You roll it out as a program. It's going to do 4 things. It's going to help people clarify purpose. It's going to help them align effort. It's going to create a common language, very, very important, around a shared framework. And it can be done as a program. I'd say implementation is implement the program. But if all you do is take 3D and make it a program, I believe you've minimized its power. What you've effectively done is stripped it down to, well, to optimize the full opportunity is to take that program and turn it into a system, an operating system to help you architect culture. So how do we do that? At the community level, that was the big experiment. Can that process work across an entire community? We didn't know. But in year one, we started gathering leaders. And we started to capture imagination. Then we tried to get them exploring it. Then we tried to get them implementing it. Then we tried to operationalize it. And once organizations build out their common language, then we use that common language to say, okay, let's build out the journey of your team. Everybody on your team is going to be recruited to your team. And then you're going to onboard them. But then you got to keep them. And then we got to launch them at some point. How can we be intentionally 3D so that we're meeting the developmental needs of people in all three dimensions of who they are in all four phases? Can we do that as a community? I don't know. But I'd say after 5 years, this is where we're at. Where are we? We've had 500 leaders in this town take that journey. 500. Now we've engaged more than that. That's 500 people that have taken essentially 3D masterclass. And what that did was allowed us to create a common data set that clearly articulates who does St. Joseph say that we want to be aspirationally. 500 leaders gave us their legacy statements, gave us their own personal core values, gave us their purpose statements, gave us their leadership reflections. What are your ideals? And all that language went into a big, big pile of language, like hundreds of thousands of words, literally in a spreadsheet. But what can we do with that? Now we can pull out the common language. And so in that 500, man, you've got the rich, you've got the poor, you got everything in between. You've got black, white, and every race. You've got male, female, you've got athletics, arts, business, education, healthcare, government, nonprofit. You've got old, young, you've got liberal, you've got, both extremes and everything in between. It's like everybody's in this mix. And everybody gave us their values, their voice. Here's what it sounded like. This is who St. Joseph says we want to be. According to 500 leaders who have taken this journey, we are a community who wants to be known as those who serve with compassion. As a community, according to 500 people that have taken this journey, I say leaders, but really it went to and through the leaders to the population, right? We are a community that pursues excellence together. We are a community that encourages and builds people. We are a community who leads with integrity, grows on purpose, loves and respects people, and treats people like family. Sounds great, doesn't it? I mean, that's the kind of community I want to live in. Now, the challenge, that's 500 people. You can make the case that this needs to be way more than that to be a true representation. And I agree. Okay. All right, I'm getting sped along here. Sorry. What we did with this is we said, okay, if this is who we say we want to be, then let's measure it. What are people experiencing? So we put out a culture survey and we asked people, how are we doing in these areas? And this is what came up. Now we put it in stability with a seedling, because we want to frame this in a growth mindset. We can grow. We don't have to shrink and die. We can grow, but only if we tend and care. So I have that survey information that I'll give to you. It's on our website. There's a dashboard. You can jump around. You can see how each sector of town, each demographic, scale different things, score different things. All those things are debatable. You may go, oh, that's not who we are. That's what 500 people are. That's not who I am. Okay. We slipped in a culture outlet question. We asked the question, I believe our community is moving in a healthy direction for future generations. This was the lowest scoring thing on the entire survey. 78% have a hope meter that looks about like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to invite people to explore that, dig into that. Got to talk to the players. That's what my coaches always say. If you want to know the truth of the culture, talk to the players. We listen. We got to listen. What are people saying? Process the implications. Okay, what does this mean for my business if we don't move the needle? If it concerns you like it does me, what we're doing is we're calling a timeout. That's what you do. And when things are going good in the game, you call a timeout. Beep. And we're going to regroup and we're going to have a conversation. We're going to get a strategy and we're going to move forward. And so that's the opportunity next Tuesday. Coaches timeout. Leaders, bring your teams. We're going to start a conversation about this and we're going to come together. We're going to get a strategy. All right, questions?
Questions? Any questions?
Yes. Yes.
As far as having people who are moving into a leadership role, is that something you recommend sending them to 3D training?
100%, I would. I think I could also put you to some people that would, I think, vouch for that as well in town if you want references. But that was one of the things at our last breakfast that Amy Cohorst shared at our breakfast. She's the HR for the city, and she liked the diversity of the training. Her comment was, she likes it for new leaders because they've never really been trained, and this gives them all the tools. But it's also a great refresher for those that have been doing it for 30 years, and it kind of covers both for them. So that the city's putting about 70 more workers through that this fall, and so we're trying to expand that to invite others to join us. So yes, the answer is yes. Please do. The website, there's actually a link that says 3D Masterclass. It's got all the details. Yes.
I've been with Wes since the beginning. As a matter of fact, we sat on his deck 6 years ago and talked about whether this is going to be good for St. Joe, and it sure is if we can implement it. The problem is, I work in addiction medicine. I see failures of society for the last 30 years come and see me because they've been addicted. They had bad parenting. They didn't have a coach that would instill in them to be better than they really were. How do you become a better parent? How do you become a better person? This fits perfectly. I may not see it before I die because this may take the younger generation to actually come up and be better.
Yes.
But he's right on.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Doc.
I go to my clinic.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just want to commend one. I'm glad Amy said slept upside the head.
I am too.
So I got to pat her on the back as well. I just thank you for what you are trying to get to St. Joe. When you do drive around, I've seen that guy who drives around to St. Joe. How do you get your hands on those kind of people and get them brought up? I know it's quite hard to get to everybody.
Well, I'll tell you, my answer to that is this. I believe that the answer isn't just a positivity campaign. We can't just, skirt the issues. What we've got to do is change the identity. We got to change people's identity. Identity drives behavior. Identity is when I know who I am, then I know what I do. But if I have a low view of self, man, I have a low standard for myself. So what we want to do is help people see themselves. Ultimately, I think 3D helps them do that because it awakes them to purpose. It wakes them to those issues of significance and success and things that they can do. And you can be coached into becoming the person you want to be. But I'm also talking about as a community, we've got to change our identity. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do is create an identity for St. Joseph. I mentioned it earlier. Our focus is we're going to try to become the city of coaches, the city built to launch dreams. I'm going to bring a convention here and all kinds of stuff, but that's my part. But the bigger part is, what is St. Joseph? Are we settling for this low view of St. Joe, or we have this elevated view of St. Joseph? And how do we get there? And I think once we change the identity, people will level up. But it's an identity issue, I think. Yeah.
Wes, I'm going to make just a slight commercial. I really recommend, like Dr. Corder did, about participation and taking the next step and coming next Tuesday. It's free, 7:30 to 9. And
No. We're going to do a luncheon. It's going to be kind of a blues and barbecue vibe.
Okay.
11 to 12:30, Big Daddy's Barbecue.
You come early, you get a good seat.
Yeah. If you come as a team, I'll seat you at your table together too.
Something that I think is startling is the 1.77. And I think that Wes frames that in terms of the fact we don't change until we really see the need. And I think that this is going to be an opportunity not to talk about how bad we are, but talk about the position we're in and what opportunity we have to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to be a part of this community moving forward, this is a small investment to take one little step and say, is there a place here that this could fit for me beyond what we're doing this morning? So my encouragement is to consider coming to that event and seeing just seeing what it means and then taking a real look at. Most of us have to take a real look at where we are before we're willing to change. And that can be the case for our community.
Thank you, Tom. We got to move the hope needle. I mean, I don't know. I'm new to the game of community, whatever I'm doing. I mean, I'm running down a drain. But I know this in the sport world. When an athlete loses hope, what do? They hit the transfer portal. And when 78% of people are going, I'm not so sure, there's not going to continue to be investment. We can invest in all the infrastructure we want, but if we don't fix the human infrastructure of the community that really was scored low there, then what good is it? I mean, if everybody moves out of town, then we got the opposite problem we do now. We got a crumbling infrastructure now. But if we get infrastructure and none of the people, then what good is it? We got to have both. We got to invest in infrastructure, but we got to invest in people. Yeah.
I'd just say kudos. I met Wes, I don't know when the first time was, but it really impacted my oldest son. So we went to something with FCA and Wes was there and who was it? I haven't been being rude here. I'm trying to find a speech that my son wrote, and it was based off of an LA Lakers player that came and presented, and it was called "You're Not a Winner or a Loser, You're a Chooser." And this stuff in business should, in my opinion, directly correlate to how you decide to lead your family. Also,
Absolutely.
give the examples of that changed my son's perspective 1,000%. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's what we got to tell those kids or whatever, what we just talked about, right? The same jokes. You got to choose it. You got to choose it.
You can tell you're a Bearcat. Once a Bearcat, always a Bearcat. But no, you
Stop
it.
Does that create enemies or what?
Yeah, Wes, you were. Yeah, Wes, you were coached by some legends at Northwest, and you're utilizing that for this business, your businesses, and yeah, I commend you for that. There are so many, and I don't live here, but I work here, and so I like to think, because the same joke unfortunately is what it's out there, and so there are so many people that have spoken here or that are in this community that just love St. Joe. So yeah, I'd say keep advertising, keep marketing. Let's find those people to change the culture.
It starts with seeing it. That's one of the things Coach T taught us. When Coach T took our program from 0-11 to 15-0 in 4 years. Years later, I remember asking him, how did you do that? Because I'm trying to gain wisdom and say, how do we apply that to the community? He said a couple of things. He said, first of all, he talked about recruiting and some different things, but he goes, we didn't have a lot of facilities at the time. They got pretty good facilities now. They're getting old now, but because I'm getting hit up as alumni, but they are way beyond where they were when we started, right? You were out, right? We had 2 trailer park buildings stacked up. Look like 2 trailer houses as a press box. I mean, how are you going to recruit to that, right? But he said the focal point, the switch was subtle but powerful. He goes, we made a conscious decision as a staff that we are not allowed to focus on what we don't have. We're going to talk about it. We're going to work to improve it, but we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to dwell on it. We're not going to use it as an excuse. We're going to focus on what we do have. And that was one of those thoughts I had out in the backyard at halftime thinking, okay, what do we have here? And I'm like you, there's a lot of people that see the good. There's a lot of good to see. But we've got to change our focus and we've got to help other people see the good and then work. It takes a lot of work to improve everything else, but it's got to start with, you got to have eyes to see it. And that is a Coach T principle. So thanks for sharing that. All right.
Any more questions? That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.